Starting. Okay.
Hi, welcome to Chat Communications Happenings and Trends. So today we're going to be discussing, I guess, a presentation or a profile that someone from the UN has done concerning the United States about, I guess, the poverty rate here. And it is no surprise to a lot of our own viewers that we have an issue with poverty as well as criminalizing the poor here. And so this person went around various areas of the country. He was an independent observer from the United Nations Human Rights Council. And what he found was basically quite alarming to him. So he went to places like Georgia, Alabama, Washington, D.C., and California. And he did observe that the income inequality in the United States is quite alarming. In fact, we have the largest income inequality in all of the Western nations, which was a surprising tidbit to this observer at the time. He also kind of associated this kind of income inequality and criminalizing of the poor with, I guess, the Trump administration. But this has been something that has been happening for 40 years onward. It's just now getting worse and worse, and which the observer did mention that it will become worse under this administration with the current policies that he has set in place, one of which being to basically cut quote unquote entitlement or quote unquote entitlement, do some reformation of entitlements. That would include cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, all under the assumption or premise that there's widespread abuse of these programs by poor individuals. However, they were unable to provide solid evidence of said widespread abuse. In fact, no administration has been able to do so since, and before and not now. And so it seems kind of more of a myth or a legend of this widespread abuse by people that do need these programs. One thing that he did note was that about 40 million people currently in the United States live in poverty. That should be surprising to anybody. And that's like severe poverty. That doesn't even say living paycheck to paycheck, which encompasses something around 80% of the country. So we have a problem here in the United States. And I just don't understand why everybody believes that we should just do entitlement reform and that will always solve the problem, when really it's advantageous and it only serves the super wealthy, and it only for the explicit purpose to get them even more wealthier, right? Because then they wouldn't have to pay anything into Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, which after a certain amount, I think $110,000, that stops. Like, it doesn't go into Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid anymore. There's a cap on the amount of income that you have to pay, that you have to make in order to pay in that system. And so it's pretty alarming. One thing also that this guy from the UN did mention was that he had noticed cases of hookworm, specifically in Alabama. And hookworm is something that, again, does not happen in modern nations. In fact, he said that he said something like, well, we're not supposed to use this term, but I'm just going to use it. This is like third world poverty conditions, is what I've witnessed in the United States. And he backs this up with also cases and instances of hookworm, but as well as lack of proper treatment of our water systems. So he noticed that there was fecal matter in our waterways and drinkable water. Or that people lived without plumbing and a lot without electricity, not voluntarily so. They did report wanting to live in a building and in a home that had electricity and running water, but they were unable to do so. Sorry, hold on.
Hey, I'll jump.
I'm back. Okay. Yeah, I left my window open and a dog started barking out there, which was not going to be a good thing. But okay, so where was I? So there were incidences of hookworm. We had fecal matter in our waterways. People were living without electricity and plumbing. And so and he did there's where I'm going. So we have these things of people in severe poverty living under these conditions, but he also made an interesting observation about the criminalization of poverty in the United States and how this is actually at the benefit of private corporations, private prison companies that have an incentive to have as many adults or children actually in prison because they get money, right? So he says that the further we criminalize poverty, the easier it will be to fill those jail cells and to fill those prison cells, because we have very exorbitant fees for minor infractions that people at a certain income level are unable to make or unable to pay. There's a bail system here that ends up benefiting the rich, so that the rich can buy them their way out of prison, while the poorest in our nation, and even just those in the middle class included, are unable to pay themselves out of jail, like our wealthy, like the wealthy Americans are capable of doing. So yeah, this is a problem. I just don't understand why there's so much contempt for the poor in the United States. As if, you know, you see people that are homeless, you see people that are in poverty, but then you're like, hey, they are living high off the hog with that welfare check. Oh, you know, they're living in a cardboard box under the bridge, right? I mean, that's not great. He also did mention in the report that on Skid Row, for instance, that there are, I guess, something of 100 or a decent amount of people that are unable to use the bathroom. And so basically using the bathroom in public or anything along those lines ends up becoming a criminal infraction that puts people in jail, especially the homeless. But they have no restrooms. There's only a very limited amount of public facilities that people that are homeless are able to use in order to not go to jail for normal bodily functions, of which he said that we don't even allow, this is below the standards of Syrian refugee camps, like the amount of bathrooms available per the displaced. We in the UN don't allow that for the refugee settlements. And so, but in the wealthiest nation in the world, this is where we are. And I know that it's, man, this makes me mad. I think this should make most people mad. This is angering, and it is something that, you know, part of the people that are homeless suffer from severe mental illness. We've got also veterans. A large proportion of the homeless are also our veterans. And this is how we treat them. We should be fucking ashamed of ourselves. I mean, again, the richest country ever known on the face of the planet, and we can't even take care of those that can't take care of themselves. We should be ashamed. And I think that they haven't presented this report yet, like in a formal setting. They will do that. They've just kind of displayed the writing and what his findings were for him to be ready to present it to the UN. And I suspect that the UN will do jack about it. I mean, yeah, we do. This kind of relates to the fact that we recently withdrew from the Human Rights Council, right? Which, honestly, with the way that we treat our own citizens, did we actually have a right to be in that council in the first place? I mean, we criminalize the poor, we throw them in jail and lock them up and throw away the key, essentially, because because in our minds, we think of, we have associated with homelessness and the poor with just being grotesque criminals. But, you know, what about all those criminals on Wall Street that crashed our economy, or all the criminals on Wall Street that conduct white collar crimes? All they have to do is pay fines. So why is nobody associating criminality with Wall Street or with, you know, big financial banking institutions or the people that run them? That makes no sense, because they have they have done more harm then arguably they have done more harm to our society at large than the poor have. They have had a larger impact. They have actually had a hand in putting people into homelessness too, right? During, the full foreclosure crisis. So why is it that we have not associated criminality with the rich? Because it's a crime what they're doing to us. It's a crime what they're doing to you guys. It's a crime what they're doing to everybody in the United States here. And they know. The weird thing is that they know they're doing it. They know it's bad. They're like, yeah, I'm going to get a bunker so that when people get, a little bit upset about this, I can just hide. Why don't you help fucking fix the system so that, I don't know, people feel like, they have a hand in their own production and that they have some say in the wages and the salary and they have mobility. If you really want to maintain a capitalist fucking system, then if you want to salvage that because obviously it's benefited you substantially so, then why not, I don't know, assure that everybody benefits so that you can keep getting rich? But yeah, that's right. We socialize losses. So if they ever were to lose, like when we have another crash, because we're in a bubble right now. So when that bursts, I suspect we will be covering up some, covering the tab, the taxpayers will be, of these industries that are, too big to, quote unquote, too big to fail, right? It's really awful, to say the least. And I suspect that people will, you'll have supporters of Trump that will ignore this information. And I want to reiterate that this is not a new phenomenon. Now, is this current administration particularly, do they particularly despise the poor? Absolutely. And I mean, I don't think that they make that a secret at all. I think that they fully intend to reform our quote unquote entitlement programs. But at the same time, the United States has been in decay for a long time regarding income inequality for, I think, something of 30 to 40 years. So to say that it's really exclusive to this administration is just false, because it has passed many administrations, and it seems like no administration has been willing to take up this issue. Surprisingly so, because maybe their donors don't want them to take up the issue of wealth inequality and the fact that wealth and income inequality and the fact that we have a humongous poverty rate, apparently third world conditions, poverty type of rate, not seen in other parts of the modern world. It's exclusive to the United States. I mean, no wonder. So I was reading a report today about from Bloomberg about millennials being fucked financially. Surprise. And so basically what they said, and it was kind of a response to another article that was released in Politico a couple weeks ago, where the author argued that it's okay that millennials won't have retirement, or it's okay that they're in large amount of debts because, you know what, they can work until they're 80, something along those lines. And this author in the Bloomberg piece did point out that, well, Americans, we're kind of dying earlier now. Our life expectancy's decreased. We're the only modern nation, though actually the only nation in the world where our life expectancy has gone down year over year for the past 2 years. And there's a couple of factors that have played into that, including the opioid epidemic has also decreased life expectancy in the United States, but also we don't have healthcare. Apparently we're getting sicker, but unable to afford healthcare. Big surprise there. If you are an American, you're not surprised by this at all. And so if you have a decreasing life expectancy and an increasing amount of debt to where my generation, the millennial generation, and Generation Z that's following us won't be able to retire, we're working until we're dead, or we're going to die young, is essentially what we're looking at. These are our options right now. We're either going to work till we're dead or we're going to die a little bit younger than that. So I guess it's like pick your poison. Geez. This is just really frustrating. Anyways, we have no right being in the Human Rights Council. But to stand up, I don't know if anybody caught Nikki Haley's speech about being a part of the Human Rights Council and why they are pulling out, why the United States has decided to withdraw from the council. It was something to the effect of, well, you know, this council has too long neglected countries where atrocities have taken place, and then it's too political, and it's like, just shut up, because look at all the neglect that we have in our own country. Look at us putting people in prison without a trial, and before trial, you know, because they can't afford bail. So that's not a presumption of innocence, right? If you're locked away before your trial, how can you presume innocence in that? You're already serving time, and you can't get out because you can't afford to. So we have a system that does grossly benefit the rich. Again, it's seen in everything, every policy. You know, the rich benefit from being in neighborhoods where their fucking water isn't poisoned. The rich benefit from having a decent education for their children. Even on the public school option, their public schools tend to be a lot nicer. So they already get a superior education right from the ground upwards, right? So you have a system where the rich also benefit if they ever have an infraction or even a large criminal offense. If they're ever accused of a large crime, they could still, you know, pay their way out of the problem, where unfortunately the poor and middle class in the United States can't. So we have a system that is grossly unfair in the United States, and it's just getting worse. It's going to get worse. Especially under these policies where you have tax breaks that have largely benefited the corporations and the rich. But you have a little bitty tax breaks for, you know, maybe the middle class. In fact, I think taxes increased on the poorest Americans to kind of help cover. This is like bonkers. No. Poor Americans can't cover the losses that the rich were handling at first. You're putting that on the backs of poor and middle-class Americans, and they just don't make that money. And they never will, because you continue to maintain a system where nobody can get out of it. Everybody is stuck where they are. We have a caste system, essentially, in the United States. It's just nobody's fucking calling it that, but that's what it is. And a lot of the time it is based on race. But then you have, you know, instances where it's not necessarily. I mean, this is affecting all of us. And you have a system in the healthcare system where, again, it largely benefits the wealthy and the rich. Whereas the poor and middle class, they have to, make bracelets so they can afford their $350,000 cancer treatment, which I just saw today, by the way. I don't have a word for how awful that is, of how immoral that is. And again, the fucking richest country in the world, the richest country where we're almost approaching $1 trillion for our fucking military budget. The richest country in the world where we're almost to our military budget where we were during the height of the Iraq War type of military budget. That's where we are. Yet we can't afford healthcare for everybody. Yet we can't afford free public college for everybody. You've got to be fucking kidding me. Because that is not true. That is a lie. That is a flat out lie. And if you honestly believe that, then the system has failed you. Or the system has greatly benefited you. So if you honestly, which I don't think the rich honestly believe that they can't be afforded, right? They just don't want it. But if you are a lower income person, you are not part of the 1%, maybe you're part of, I don't know, the 99% of us that are down here, and you honestly believe that, then the system has already failed you. Then you did not get the best education the world has to offer. Period. Because these are again, people are telling you this, and this is like for Trump supporters, right? The guys that don't like the government. That say, oh, the government can't afford this. The government can't do that. Who the fuck's telling you that? Oh, the government? Wait, so what part of it do you believe? Do you believe it when the government tells you they can't do something, or when the government tells you they can do something? Because it seems like you're a little biased in that perspective. You just want to believe what you want to believe instead of looking at the unquestionable facts of the matter. And yeah, we can afford healthcare for everybody. We can. We can afford to drop down pharmaceutical costs. We can afford college for everybody. And we can afford to cut our defense budget. We will still be safe. And if your safety, if you feel that your safety is like more important than, I don't know, your health, and you're going to die early because of health, but at least you, I don't know. Are you going abroad or something? Or I have no idea what the justification is here. I have no idea what the justification is.
Can I jump in back onto the UN stuff?
Of course.
Okay, now we're jumping. Hi. Sorry, I was eating my edibles. I know. So I wanted to drop a few things. Today was actually the day they were reporting, so we were hoping to see some stuff in at least independent media tomorrow on the report, because it was brought to the UN Human Rights Council today. I did some looking, and I went back because of the fact that it seemed like this report was a lot bigger than past reports on a lot more stuff. I think they spent a little bit more time in certain areas. I want to say that it probably is about, because of Trump being in there, that they were kind of, okay, let's look at this a little bit more. I have a feeling
because they looked at several other countries. It wasn't just.
I feel like because I looked at past reports for United States, and they never really went into these places and really, broke it down this way. The report from 2016 was mainly on the human trafficking, and surprise, surprise, September of 2016, Obama, basically said the same thing that Trump's been saying, that the immigrants are coming in and they're bringing in with them drugs and stuff like this. He said that in September of 2016. But it's easier to hear from him, I guess, for certain people than to hear from Trump, which is fine. Another thing Lauren and I were discussing before this is this just goes to show like how when Susan Sarandon said, if we get Trump in there, it's going to open people's eyes. And that's basically all she was saying. And that's what's happening. And that's the one and only good thing that's happening under this administration, is that more people are seeing this stuff. And I get there's a battle about, oh, it happened before and stuff like that. And I get it. It was happening, but it is getting worse under Trump. And it honestly is getting worse under Trump. Right. I went back and looked at, I wanted to look at a report from both Clinton administration and when Bush was in. And the Bush report in 2000, they focused on, this is back in 2000, they gave a recommendation that we had a right to health care, or we had a right to health. And the United States downplayed it then and just said, nope, we're not going to take your recommendations on this. And probably every year they go through and don't take any of the recommendations, because that's all it is just recommendations that they can give. And as I said, 2016 was on the trafficking with Obama. The stuff before, like in the the 1996 reports and stuff like that, it's more of the same. I mean, it's still talking about a lot of the same stuff, but not to the degree that it's talking about on this last report. So hopefully we see a little bit more on that from, you know, at least Democracy Now! And stuff, that at least they do some sort of reporting on it tomorrow or over the weekend. That's
why we're here. We're doing the reporting.
Well, I know, but we're hoping that it gets into a little bit bigger reach, because I want more people to see it. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't noticed, my pinned tweet on my page, on my Lumpy Lewis, not my new page that I had to make today. My pinned tweet is on this, and that's only part of the report. That is one point. It had 15 subpoints to it. The whole report is 72 points, and the last few are on Puerto Rico. So if you get a chance to read the whole report, it's really damn. It's pretty bad. So I mean, I suggest people should look more into it, because this is what our country is, and this is we're not ahead in anything. Well, we're ahead in creating wars and stuff like that. Our military is huge, but we're not ahead in anything good for the people. We are not. And they did our election. You know, so I mean, it's all there, and they talked about all that, and it's just it's disgusting.
Yeah, the report's very damning. I read like the original write up a few months ago. It was pretty lengthy too, yeah. And so I'm assuming this is a bit more comprehensive now, and I'm wondering if the United States will react to it at all, like have a response to it. I doubt they will, because again, they'll probably mention healthcare. They did mention healthcare being a problem in the United States. They mentioned the fact. I mean, they mentioned pretty much everything that we talk about. You know, healthcare, wealth inequality, racial disparities. I mean, they go into detail about a lot of it. They did mention, of course, the illnesses that weren't seen in the modern world, or the conditions. But again, that's a problem with sanitation and healthcare. The fact that, you know, apparently a lot of people have electricity in the modern world, but, you know, not in the American South. It's surprising. And it's not like a voluntary thing, you know, like hermits intentionally, you know, go off the grid, right? So it's not a voluntary thing. It's just they can't afford electricity, or to be in neighborhoods that have electricity, which is outrageous. I mean, this is outrageous. And it's not even that these people aren't working full-time jobs. You know what I mean? Because we have no, I don't know, job guarantee in the first place, but we definitely don't have anything remotely close to wages that people should be earning for what they produce. The American productivity is very high, yet our wages are stagnant and creeping downward. And then you've got, you know, the current government saying, well, Social Security is going to be, you know, run dry in like a few years. Alarm. And you know, it's like, oh, come on, y'all are full of shit. So instead of like securing a program, they're just going to be like, yeah, we're going to let it run out. Mm-hmm. Instead of, you know, taxing the wealthiest among us, we're going to decrease taxes, yet increase our military budget, because that's smart. Because our safety is more important than our safety. Because why don't they take this as a homeland security issue? The wealth inequality, right? If they believe that poverty begets what? Crime? Then I would be working really hard to prevent crime. And if that's a homeland security issue, then maybe you should assure that we, I don't know, decrease our poverty levels in the United States instead of increase them, which is what we're doing. Doing the exact opposite of what logic should dictate. Because the country is not run on logics. It's run, you say that they say the country runs on laws and rules. But these laws are based in biblical law, right? And so you've got a biblical principle that is outdated, theocratic, borderline theocratic, right? Because it's laws versus, religious law. And then you use religious law to justify current law, which it blows my mind. It blows my mind that you would do that. And so we've got these people that are so theocratic in nature that are running the country and criminalizing the poor, because that makes total sense to do. And then they'll treat immigration as a homeland security threat, but not poverty as a homeland security issue. Does that make any sense to anybody? Does it mean that we're safer if we're dying younger because of preventable illnesses or because of opioids overdoses? Does that mean me and my community safer? Yeah, you're going to increase our defense budget. For what? What is the threat other than me getting an illness and not being able to afford to live through it? That is the most immediate threat. That's more of an immediate threat than someone else in another country saying, they don't like the United States. Because I got a shock here. I say that all the time. I don't like the United States because of what it has done to the people here. Because I see people in poverty, in severe poverty. Because I see people with healthcare conditions that need to be able to afford their medications and can't. Because I see these things that are so fucking preventable and so easily fixable, yet our politicians don't do anything to help. And they say, well, my hands were tied. There's nothing I could do. Yeah, there is. There's a lot you could do. That's why you're elected to be there by the people, right? You're supposed to be elected by the people, is to do shit and to fix our broken house. The house is broken, y'all. And we got some repairs and nothing is getting fixed. If anything, you just put a fucking Band-Aid on a huge water leak. How much sense does that make? That's what the ACA did, right? So basically, you put in a system that was already shown to not really work very well in Massachusetts, and maybe you can correct me, Janet, on this, because I think that that was implemented in that area, and there were complaints about it, about the premium costs and things like that, right? That they could have used as a kind of a warning sign to say, hey, maybe we'll make sure that we have caps so that people, so that the healthcare companies don't raise premiums indefinitely, so that we assure still everybody can participate in the free market. But they didn't do that. They didn't.
I wanted to let me relay this. I remember being back in, saying, okay, I went on disability, but I had 3 years where I paid out of pocket $75,000 in 3 years out of pocket after paying, and it was $865 every 2 weeks for our family plan. I paid $75,000 out of my pocket in those 3 years. And someone's like, that can't be possible because this was, back in 2016. Well, ACA only came into 2014. I'm like, I'm in Massachusetts. Yes, it's possible. It's been going on here for years. And my healthcare, ever since I got sick, I had to be, I had to have healthcare, and it broke me. I mean, I had no life savings. For me to go into my disability, I had nothing. I had to spend all my 401k on health bills. I was homeless. I mean, I was home. If I didn't have my parents to move in with, and at the time, my husband, I mean, he's bipolar, so he has a hard time. Like, all right, I don't want to go live with your parents. I had to do a lot of convincing because we were going to be living in our car. At the end of me living in that house, we had no electricity. We had no water. We had a water break. It destroyed the whole living room, and I could do nothing about it. I could do nothing because I had no money. And that was all because both he and I were sick. And that's not fair.
No, it's not only not fair, but it is not just. It is inhumane to have people go through this. Again, in the fucking richest country in the world. It's wrong. It is morally bankrupt, is what it is. And more Americans need to be pissed, because that's going to be you one day. If it's not you already, that will be you, because we're all going in that direction. We're all piling debt on ourselves to get a fucking decent job, because we all have to have 4-year degrees or higher now just to get a job that offers paid time off. Right? I mean, it's just so wrong. And again, so there was a model that we could have used, like the ACA knew that Massachusetts was having some issues with it. That could have been corrected, but they didn't. And so now, not only did you fuck people's healthcare options, right? But now you made the people that are the most distrustful about the government become even more distrustful about something like universal health care, because you fucked them. And because you implemented a system that you knew wasn't going to work. There's no way they didn't know. This was just them going like, well, here's just kind of a little table scraps just to get you guys right now to shut up. But in the long run, we'll get rid of it. They knew it was going to come down, and that it could easily come down too, because all you have to do is get rid of the individual mandate, and then the whole system's done. That's the fucking backbone of the program. And guess what? They did that. By get rid of it, they just moved it to $0, so there's no penalty. So you knew that was a vulnerability in that. And now you have created a system that's going to fuck people with pre-existing conditions now, because they do need the goddamn healthcare. But then also create a system where on the other side of the aisle, they won't ever fucking trust government healthcare again, even though that was not governmental healthcare. You could scream it from the rafters, but they know Obama healthcare. That's all. That's all they do. That's as far as they go. And they don't know that something like Medicare for All universal system would actually help everybody. And it has been shown in various other nations too. We're the only one. Why are we the only one? Yet we have crippling healthcare costs and go bankrupt because we can't afford it. That makes no sense. I mean, I can't logic them. I can't do it. I lack that ability. All right, so now that I have ranted, right? Let's read some comments. So Celeste Holm mentions that the insurance industry kept raising rates to the point most plans were expensive, yet offered little coverage. Small businesses had to change providers every year or two to manage the costs. Absolutely, and that can be burdensome for small businesses, especially because then you have to keep negotiating with all of these healthcare options and healthcare plans, and you're a small business, you don't have a huge HR department that's capable of doing that, right? You have to spend your time and resources elsewhere, and now you have to spend more resources trying to figure out something that would actually work for you and your employees. And I think there was like businesses under like 35 people or something weren't required to do the healthcare thing. That all the individuals could go to the insurance exchange market. But I think if you had 35 or more employees, you were responsible for healthcare for your employees. Yeah, I mean, it did. I think, yeah, to some extent, you're right, Mark. Obama put people's lives in danger because the ACA is so expensive for people. So they want it repealed due to the high premiums. Yeah, because people can't afford it. Because, you know, healthcare costs keep increasing, healthcare premiums keep increasing, but not their paychecks. Their paychecks aren't. They may get like a little bit, 2%, but then the healthcare costs go up 9%. Does that make, I mean, they can't afford it. And so, yeah, it created such anger understandably so, at the system. Are we going to have call-ins today?
I put the number up, but no one's called yet.
Okay, I don't know if I needed to. So in case you haven't seen, we do have the call-in option today. So if you want to call in, please use that number provided. I think, Janet, can you put it back into the chat? Because I didn't even see it come through in there. But Janet will post it to the chat. So if you want to call in and talk to us, feel free to do so. Let's see. I'm going to scroll up a little bit because I'm probably sure I'm definitely missed some really good comments here. I don't know what that's in relation to. So yeah, there's a lot of frustrating things happening lately. The immigration. So Janet, you mentioned a point earlier that I forgot to address, and it was something interesting that you said. You said something to the effect of, well, I think it's, you know, in regard with the UN and what they kind of looked at, the fact that they may have investigated a little bit longer, went to different areas of the country instead of sticking to whatever bougie rich area that they've previously done their work here. And it's something to the effect, well, maybe because of Trump, it's kind of waking up people, it's making them pay attention. And I think to some extent you're right. My only concern, and this is going to tie into this immigration thing, is that he is so extreme and he is hurting, he is doing so much damage, or potentially has the potential to do so much damage without regard for any of the consequences, that it actually is going to push us to, oh, thank God we got another George W. Bush in office. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it'll push us to that point. Instead of going, oh, we need a Medicare for all, people will be like, well, we're happy with the ACA. You know, I'm really worried that that's what's going to happen. In fact, I mean, we see signs of that a lot already. And the reason I thought of the immigration thing was because of Trump's executive order to prevent himself from separating children from their parents at the border. Because that was his policy. That wasn't a Barack Obama policy. That was not a Barack Obama policy. The internment camps for the children did happen under Barack Obama, but it was for unaccompanied minors. It was not for minors that had their parents with them. So that is a false narrative if you heard that. But anyways, that being said, so Trump signed the executive order to prevent himself from implementing his policy about separating children at the border. And there were reports of separation of minors and children at the border with those seeking asylum, which is against international law. No surprise there. Anyways, so he signed that, but then we're just going back to what? We still have internment camps, right? I mean, so now is it like, whew, now we don't have to pay attention because he signed that executive order? And also, what about the children that have already been separated? You know, I mean, I'm really worried that people will, you know, that the people have been pushed to such an extreme over here on the right, that they just want to go back to, I don't know, Barack Obama and his internment camps. And ignoring it, and as opposed to, well, how about we don't have internment camps? How about we do that? How about we don't have ICE anymore? How about we make immigration how about we decriminalize immigration and not associate it with a homeland security threat, as opposed to as opposed to just doing nothing, saying, you know, I think Neera Tanden, whatever her name is, had a tweet to the effect of, we need ICE, it's important. Right? Did anybody catch that tweet today?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. We do need ICE. We didn't have ICE prior to George W. Bush.
No.
Because immigration wasn't considered a homeland security issue. Immigration was handled as a community issue, right? It was considered a customs and community issue. It wasn't considered a an association with terrorism, which we don't need to associate immigration with terrorism, which is what happened under Bush. But I'm afraid that we've been pushed over so much that now we're just like, oh, can we just go back to associating immigration with terrorism without the children internment camps? But let's keep the family internment camps. That's better.
I wanted to, Bluebell was mentioning about, that the Democrats been kind of ramping up Bush's image since before Hillary lost the election, which I totally agree with. And now, if you think about it, with, you had Painter, you had that Schmidt guy that just, I'm leaving, Bloomberg giving all this money, who was, he was a Republican, or at least he calls himself an independent now. But I mean, yeah, the Democratic Party is basically the Republican Party now. And we don't have a party on the left. We don't.
Right. And so I think with Stephen, right? With Schmidt saying that, the Republican Party is no longer his party. He's switching over to the Democrats. And he specifically mentioned in his statement that it's not because of progressive values. So what would that tell you? The Democrats don't have any fucking progressive values as a party.
And they're welcoming all these Republicans. They're opening their arms to them.
Well, Clinton was right. For every progressive they lost, they gained a few Democrats. It just took a few years. Just took a couple of years. For every progressive they lost, they gained a Republican. Mm-hmm. So, they were correct in that. It just, it just took a little bit. There was a gap in time. So, they weren't wrong in that assessment. But the Democratic Party has been moving to the right for ages. The fact that they have such hardcore, it doesn't surprise. None of this surprises me about this faux two-party system. And you guys were mentioning that, like, we're one of very few countries that has a two-party system, right?
Lauren and I were talking about that, yeah.
Yeah, because all the other ones were like, yeah, we didn't realize that the two-party system doesn't really work for us. So we're going to make this party and make it a viable party. As opposed to us that basically say, let's maintain the status quo. Damn it, we're going to, die fighting you to maintain that party, to maintain the power structure. For a bunch of fucking so-called Americans that love to rail against the government oppression and how we beat the English because they were the oppressive government. You guys are sure very willing to believe your oppressive government quite quick and to go along and to maintain that oppressive government. I don't see anybody making a big stink about the surveillance state, the police state, the increasing militarization of our systems, including our governmental structures, of the fact the increasing criminalization of poverty, of protesting, all of these things, all of our civil liberties, right? Like protesting, speaking out, now it's domestic terrorism because they're trying to associate things with terrorism because that's a buzzword. People hear it and mental image of danger. So the people, I'm going to just say it, the people the Saudis that bombed the two towers, it worked. It was very effective. This was their goal, was to make sure that we as a society didn't enjoy the freedoms that we had before. That was their whole goal. And we fell for it. And we're still falling for it. Because, again, we are increasing our military budget just at the expense of the people. And they don't want us to function. They didn't want us to function. They're dead now, right? They didn't want us to function as a society, and we're not. So it was quite effective because we're playing into that. We're playing into that fear, which is exactly where they wanted us. Just sad. It's really sad. And the fact that people don't even realize that is even sadder to me. I
wanted to go back to a point where you were saying about you know, over the years and how we were talking about this the other day, that I remember as a kid in a PG movie, you could actually see boobs. Now you can't. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're moving more back to puritanical things than we were before. And we sit there and point the finger at Islam, you know, in this country saying, oh, they're all radical and they want us to live like that. No, I feel like, you know, they're trying to radicalize us into being more like Christian and Puritans and crap like that, which we don't need.
It's Sharia law by another name, right? It's just under a different faith. And so they have Sharia law where you get basically executed for not following the religious doctrine, which could happen here. I wouldn't put it past our government doing any of that. But yes, I think you're right. I think that I don't know why. I don't know why there's such a push for, well, damn it, we can't have boobs anymore because I don't want my teenagers to see them. Or I don't get it. I don't understand. Or, you know, cursing, or, you know, as much as my generation curses, we curse all the time. I just think it's really just this last hurrah of like this religious movement that happened in the 70s and this conservative movement that went along with it. I think it's really a last like final stand with these older people that vote religiously, because they do, and they're the ones in charge, and they tend to be at a more extreme area than where we are. And I mean, that just gives you kind of an idea of how important it is to at least get people energized, younger people energized, so that they can in some capacity make an impact. And that is the easiest capacity that we have available to us, is just to go and vote. And I think that this last election, the presidential election at any rate, really hurt that prospect, because now you have a two-party system that basically said we don't care about young voters, especially the Democratic Party. That's exactly what they did. They demonized young voters. They said falsehoods and lies about young voters that supported Bernie Sanders. And because young voters overwhelmingly supported Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton, even, you know, young minority voters, the majority of them supported Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton. So you ostracized them and said, you don't matter, you're not important to us. And then they doubled down and said, we're going to assure that you continue not to matter and not be important to us. Just leave the party, go, leave. And this was, for many of those young voters, the first time they ever voted. So what would you do if that was your first experience? You'd probably be really pissed in the voting process. But then you'd be so upset about the system. I don't know if that would motivate me to vote again, when I was just, through my own experience, told your vote is shit. It doesn't matter, and we will do everything to assure that it doesn't matter, and then lie about your character and who you are to even further make sure it doesn't matter. Like, how much do you want to make sure that those people don't participate in the process? Which was another thing that the UN report did mention, that we have an increasing problem with voter turnout. And I think where they were going with it wasn't a summary about this, but they did throw it in because there is a connection. And the fact that you have an increasing amount of millions of Americans that feel disenfranchised from the process of voting and having representation, while you have an increasing amount of wealth inequality, you know, healthcare inequality and things like that. It's by design. They don't want you to vote. And they will do everything in their power to prevent you to vote. That's why you don't see Democrats working on these voter laws that do disenfranchise disproportionately minorities. You don't see them work. Where is the Democratic Party on that? Where are they? Why aren't they working on that? They keep calling, they're going to call Republicans out, saying like, well, it's your fault for jerry rigging and, you know, having voter ID laws. But what are you going to do, Democratic Party, to reverse those laws and to restore voting rights? Nothing, because it maintains the status quo. The less people who vote, the more you win. All right. Do we have anybody that wants to call us? I would like to actually hear from you guys. Please clap. Please call.
Clap for me. Okay, Jeb.
Jeb, it's Jeb.
Jeb.
I'm gonna see if there's anything.
I had a point to make though. You know, we were talking about you know, the puritanical and the religious and stuff, and it goes back. Like, why is Jeff Sessions even bringing up the Bible and what the Bible law? I mean, we're supposed to go by. These are supposed to be Republicans, and they're all for the Constitution law. Why are we jumping into the Bible law? They're alienating more and more people doing that, and it's just the Dems have no issue with it. They don't. They allow it. They don't have a problem with any of this, and they don't want to. You know, we have the proof, like in the Democratic primary in New York. I mean, I know there was an issue in Massachusetts because I almost got kicked off, but I caught it right in time. But in New York, they you know, they had all these people going to vote, and here we go, and we're all bitching about it, and they were like, oh, but how do you know some of those weren't voting for Hillary? Like, how can you say that? Because you guys aren't bitching about it, and you're not trying to help us to correct the issue. That's how we know it was, you know, mainly voters that probably would have gone, you know, towards Bernie.
Can you post the number into the chat again? Someone had asked what the number was. Now, Celeste says we're an engaged but shy audience. No kidding.
I'm a fake.
I agree with you. We have a question from Mark. Hey, Amanda and Lumpy, how do you think the millennial voting base will do in this year's midterm? Do you think millennial voter turnout will be high? Janet, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think?
The millennials, I see. Okay, so then we go on to that, and we have totally there. You have two different sides to that. You have the ones that are like, I am never voting again. And so we did lose some of these people. And I know a few people that have said this. I want to sign into the chat and give you guys the number, but it kicked me out. And the last time that it kicked me out and I hit sign back into the chat, that's when
somebody said they tried to call, but then nobody answered.
Really? I'm not getting the... Sorry. Hold on. It should come through. I'm in the Skype, but it might have. All right, try now. Whoever was calling, try again. But it's 508-534-8585. If anyone wants it, 508-534-8585. I'm just not going to hit that sign into chat again because that's what dumped us the last time. So what was I saying? I don't know where I was at. I was talking about
millennial voters. If we think it will be high, or
I think the ones that are coming into 18, like they're going to be there in 2020, and the ones that didn't get a chance to vote, I think all of them are kind of interested in voting. So we do have that coming forward.
So we got Gen Z, because that would be Gen Z.
Yeah, that's not millennials, I guess. So, but I think I want to say, like, going back to the point about what the Dems did, this was my whole thing. I don't have a problem with someone being a Democrat and wanting to fight the Democrats and make the party better. I personally don't see it happening. I mean, I don't, with that whole split, when we had the people that were so mad that people were, they get mad because people are Democrats, or they get mad. I don't find, I think we can work. There's a part of the Democrats that we can work with, that, the people. I'm not talking about the politicians. I'm talking about the people. And so they're there, but there's a whole group of younger people, and I think maybe because I'm older, maybe I understood it a little bit better, or I don't know, like I just, or because my whole life and I'm older and, you know, it was beat into me that Dems are the good guys or something like that. It's harder for me to get over it and be like, I totally hate the Dems and I don't want to talk to a Dem ever again, especially since my mother's a Democrat, so I can't not talk to them. But I think that there is a group of people that just they can't see it from the difference of people versus the politics and what the Democratic establishment did. And I understand it. I understand both sides of the whole thing. I can't personally discount a person that has been a Democrat their whole life and they're trying to fight for the Democrats. I will try to support them in any way I can. But I don't see the Democrats as, you know, I see them as Republicans now. That's all I see them as. The establishment is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they are. I think we're at a point where another party will reemerge. Now, this other party that does end up reemerging to represent the actual left of the country, which is the majority of the country, I think that they will have to make a decision on what type of structure that they want. So do they want to maintain the two-party system? Because when they come to power, and if and when they come to power, you'll have the Democratic Republicans and then this new leftist party. Do they maintain that because now they have power? Or will they implement things like ranked choice voting to give third-party options an opportunity to break through? I think that once the country understands what ranked choice voting is and and the benefits that it could have in any election, I think that you will see more people support it than not. But again, once this other party does come to power, I don't trust them personally. Even if they are super left wing, I don't trust them to implement something like ranked choice. And so that would be something everybody could do at a community level. I think we're going to have a segment on ranked choice voting as well. But that's something that could be done at a community level, just to get the idea planted, get those seeds planted early, because we will have to make another party. We don't have anybody representing the majority of the country anymore. So that's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And as long as we don't kill ourselves, right? Stay alive, please. But as long as we do that, then I think that we will, if you start early, you can plant those seeds with your city council. If you live in a town, I don't know what the electoral structure is there. Whatever council you have, go ahead and talk to them. They probably are just pretty normal folks, haven't been necessarily influenced by big money yet. Now would be a time to start planting those seeds so that they can, at least on a local level, where your lives are more impacted every day, that can be implemented prior or as this new party does begin to emerge. But yeah, let's see, what do we have here? I don't think so, Mark. Do you think the issue of gun control and the NRA will energize millennial voters this year? I think that will not energize millennial voters. I think that would be more likely to energize Gen Z voters. And the reason I say that is because it was the millennial generation that experienced Columbine. They were the first. And so so Gen Z, I don't think they've lived under any type of peace regarding like gun safety, but millennials did. And we didn't do anything about it. And we haven't done anything about it because we got so accustomed to the fact we're in a state of learned helplessness, right? Like there's so much outrage about it, but then every time there's an attempt, nothing happens. That's what we learned. We learned that we couldn't reach out to our parents to help implement change. We couldn't reach out to our politicians. And I'm glad that Gen Z isn't going to take that, because Gen Z is smarter. They have more media options to consume than what millennials originally had. There was no independent media initially, especially when Columbine first happened. I think that was in 1990, late 90s, somewhere around there. So there wasn't anything other than the mainstream media. And what the mainstream media told you, that was truth. That was fact. And it wasn't corporate media. You didn't think of it that way, as if they had an incentive to tell you something that wasn't true, or they had an incentive to not, or to withhold information so that you didn't know the complete truth. But now Gen Z does. They grew up under, having access to independent sources, which is great. And so they realize that our politicians are bought. You can't trust them. We're going to fucking do it ourselves. And so I do believe that issue could energize those voters, but not millennial voters. I think millennial voters would be more energized about college tuition, about student loan debt, because they're suffering right now, about wealth inequality, and about these wars, because again, it's the millennial generation and Gen X too that had to that have gone to these wars and have been to these wars for years now. My friends, my family, myself, I was enlisted and got called up to go to Iraq. So these are issues that could influence my generation to vote. But I don't think guns is one of them, unfortunately. Okay. So do we still have people trying to call?
I don't know. I have the Skype open and I'm not seeing. I don't know why it's not coming through. I'm in.
Okay.
Definitely in.
Brad, I know about learned helplessness because I was a psych and neuroscience major. So we learn about a lot of those type of psychological phenomena and the impact it has on the brain, or what the brain goes through, or how it develops and things like that. You don't have to have any questions. You can have a comment too. And Aaron A, no, I think we tried to do the Hangout calls and it just wasn't, I think, like, Janet, didn't you keep getting hung up on, and then we lost, I think that was one of the reasons we lost the feed last week.
Yeah, last time and I were having a lot of issues with it. Someone did try calling, but for some reason I didn't hear it ringing on this end, and I was looking at something else.
Okay.
Weird, because I have it on. So we did get the call, so it did come through. I just don't know why I didn't.
What happened was, like, I was logged into the Actify account while you guys were trying to receive calls, so the calls were going to me and not getting to you, Janet. So
okay,
I apologize.
Pay to call in?
No.
You shouldn't have to pay to call in, guys. If it's telling you to pay, then maybe. I heard a lot of talking.
Oh, Lauren, can you put it on mute?
Thank you. No, I don't think that we need to, that it should be a paid thing, as far as I understand. Again, this is the first time we're trying this, so we're sorry for kind of the bugs, but do be a little patient, and because we would love to hear from you guys. Just keep trying, and we'll get it worked out. We'll get it worked out.
We're gonna do a whole, like, business account thing. So so
hopefully we'll have it set up a little bit better next time we attempt this. So just keep trying. Again, I do apologize for the little hiccups. Hopefully, we'll get some Patreon subscribers, and that will really help us here, so that we can pay for these things that would be a lot easier for everybody, and so that we can help pay for, just to have the number on the screen and do some of that like fancy graphic stuff, when we're actually talking to you. That way, there's no confusion or anything like that. So subscribe to our Patreon. Tell your friends, please. Please subscribe. Hides in cave. Oh, Lauren. Okay, so Andrew Baker and guys, are y'all there? Okay, so I don't know if y'all are there, but Andrew Baker made a comment that I don't know what the post-Hillary's response is, but post-2016 response from Hillary's campaign permanently damaged relations between left and the center. I think that they were definitely, I don't remember exactly what her campaign's response was. I think that the book tour didn't help. It was they are responsible. I'm going to blame the progressive base of the Democratic Party for my loss, as opposed to me and my own faults. I'm going to blame the left wing of the Democratic Party for me failing to go to the firewall states. How does that make any fucking sense? That makes no sense. Makes no sense. But the message was clear. We are not interested in your vote. We do not need your support. But simultaneously, we do need your support. Why didn't you vote for us? Anyways, I think that it's quite clear that they're just not interested in serving the progressive party, the progressive part. And so, yes, we definitely need another viable option. A option that is not immune to criticism, that will take it and be responsible with it and say, look, this is the criticism. Okay, let's fix it. Maybe you don't agree with the particular criticism, but maybe get to the why. Like, why is this a criticism that I'm hearing right now?
Hey, I have someone on the line, and this is the weird thing, because if I have the phone call on, I have to leave you talking. So this is why it has to go through Lauren, because it has to be that Lauren can mute everything, and I can't do that because I'm controlling the video. So I have somebody on. Who's this?
Bluebell 51.
Okay, it's Bluebell 51. Can you hear her?
Yeah. I can hear.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
So
I'm calling in to kind of, help you test out the call-ins because nobody was calling in.
All right. No, well, I think this will work. And you know what? I think it'll work. I have a whole nother idea now. So I think we can get it to work really well next week. I just had something come to me. So I think we're okay. So I think we're all right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. All right. We tested it on live.
Live. You guys witnessed some of the background production part of our segments. Is a lot of it's just testing things, and so you guys got to be a part of that. And I feel like we're family now. We're all family here. You guys got to witness a process that we go through, and so that makes you family. Now you know.
All right. Yeah. No. So I think this will work good. So do you want to? We're like an hour and.
I was hoping to get more calls.
I know.
My family let me down today.
I'll yell at them all, and Tuesday we'll probably have like 50,000 calls.
Mark said that he tried to call in, but I guess the line was busy.
Oh, okay. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna answer the phone. Hey, who's this?
Mark Anderson.
You're on with Amanda.
Oh, hey.
Hey, Mark.
First of all, I want to congratulate all y'all. I mean, you and Amanda, you're doing a great job with the show. I mean, also I want to say Barack Obama you know, if he would have made universal health care, we wouldn't be in this mess right now, you know, because he promised to make free health care. And instead he made the ACA, which was unaffordable. It wasn't.
Oh, we lost him. I don't know how. But thank you, Mark. That was.
Yeah, Mark, I think you make a very good point. And I think you're probably right to some extent. I don't believe that even if we did have universal health care for everybody, I do not believe that he would have decreased the military budget. I do not believe that he would have helped in any way with the student loan debt crisis that we are now facing. I don't believe that he would have helped with the income inequality and the wars, right? I mean, we went from 4 to 7. Four wars and interventions under Bush to 7 under Obama, and dropping so many bombs that we ran out of bombs to drop under the Obama administration. So so to some extent, you're right, but I think that in general, other than the ACA, I think that people would still be struggling a lot.
I think it would help. It would have helped a bit more, you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot more people would have had a little bit more freedom in not have to worry about health bills. But I think Lauren wanted to say something too.
I was just gonna say, like, Obama's just continuation of the problem of, Clinton, Reagan, Carter, and both Bushes. Like, he's just a continuation of the problem. Like, you can't blame the whole thing on him. This is like, it's decades worth of shit that's built up that's caused all these problems. And you take a lot of things, you have to take a lot of factors in on this. It's just my thought.
But interesting, and to Mark's point on this, I think that I don't find that a Democrat would have lost if a universal healthcare system was implemented. And the reason I say that is because we've gotten so accepting of a lot of these wars a lot of the time, at least the mass populace have. But they were upset about the healthcare stuff. A lot of people were on both sides of the aisle. But I want to just pretend like we have a universal healthcare. It was implemented by a Democrat, and would another Democrat have lost for such a recently implemented, probably well liked and loved program if that was the case? I think that a Democrat would have won another election had a universal healthcare system been implemented. Now, let that sit for a few years and people get used to it, and then they'd have to do something else, to appease their base and independents. But I think for the first, several years it's been implemented, I think it would have been hard for Republicans to win another presidential election.
Can I just mention something? We're supposed to still do an interview after this.
Okay, so we will have the call feature available for us next week. If you have not already, please subscribe to this channel. It does really help us. Please also just send messages to your friends and family if you like what we do here. We'd love to have them be a part of our family as well. And also subscribe to our Patreon if you haven't already done so. Please look at that and subscribe, because we could really use the support. And we love doing this for you guys. We actually like reading your comments, and the first time we got to talk to somebody, and I love it. I love hearing from you guys. We won't judge. We won't judge if you want to call in, and we're not going to judge you. So feel free to call in at any point.
Yeah.
I think Brad is talking about this. I love the awkwardness of the current system. It's hilarious. But we have an interview to conduct.
Everything is awkward. Sorry, people.
So this week was kind of like we were trying some new things again, and we were going to do a push for, I guess, getting this resolved with the call-in feature and things like that. But we hope to return to kind of, doing this twice a week along with more segments. And so we have a few things lined up. One is we're going to do a continuation of the MMT segment we've done with Kathleen. Kathleen. I had it right the first time. And we're going to talk to her some more about MMT. And we have some really cool things. We're going to have someone on about ranked choice voting. And so this is going to be a great opportunity for you guys to just learn more information from us. And we, again, love doing this. So please subscribe to our Patreon. If you only have $1 to give us a month, please consider doing that. Every little bit helps. I can't tell you how important this is for our show and kind of maintaining what we do here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.
Bye, guys. Thank you.